going live.
What? Andre, 34. Do you know what a minute is?
It's 34 on my clock.
It's just literally counting it down.
Oh, what the hell?
Alright, sorry Twitch viewers that aren't there.
What is that?
We went live on YouTube.
Well, you wanted something to break the ice. Here it is.
How crappy of a naming convention, calling the winning deck a different name than the other decks. They're the exact same deck.
Hey, there were like one change.
That's what won in the Pro Tour.
Yeah. Alright, it's 15 seconds. You can probably click it now.
10, 9, 8, and that's how we were late. 6.
It's streaming now.
Is it?
It's streaming on the Twitch and YouTube.
Well, I told you that it wouldn't stream on Facebook.
That's fine. It's like sneak peek behind the scenes.
I didn't know we were live.
That's what I told you.
I thought you went...
Alright.
Alright, now it's live.
Alright, there we go.
Good evening and thank you for tuning into the Spin Down podcast. I'm Matt. It's Tiny. And that's Chris Conroy. Tonight we have an interesting show for you. We'll be talking about chess clocks and if we should be using them in Magic. We'll also be talking about some of the decks that showed up in the Pro Tour. Tiny?
News-wise, first, we'd like to congratulate our friend Nathaniel Hoffman on another exciting win in a Legacy tournament over the weekend. He came in first place and won a Mox Sapphire, right? Yeah. Mox Sapphire. So congrats to him.
I wonder if he regrets not taking that jet. He's getting there.
Yeah, and the jet turned into a bunch of modern cards, so it's fine. Besides that, obviously the Pro Tour happened. We will be covering that as our second topic, so we won't show the top 8 right now. We'll cover that then. Yep, Hoffman, we are going to fire our producer. Yeah, anything else big in the news besides the Pro Tour?
They did announce the last creature type for the Commander deck lists.
Did they?
Yeah, it's going to be Grixis Wizards.
Ooh.
So, I do love you'll never guess, and then all of the creature types have been super guessable.
Is Young Pyromancer a wizard? Are we going to get a reprint of that? Not that that matters, but...
Legendary Snapcaster. That's what I'm calling.
But yeah, besides that, let's move on to... Or I guess we should say first, if you would like to support our stream, go to patreon.com/spindownpodcast and sign up for the Patreon. You'll get sweet things like getting the show notes when we make them. Not this week, but when we make them, getting the show notes a day early. You can get behind the scenes stuff, things like that. We actually will have t-shirts coming soon. We're gonna figure out the logo in the next week or so and get t-shirts made. So, but beyond that, moving on to our first topic, should there be chess clocks in Magic, and would that be a change for the better or a change for the worse? Knee-jerk reactions that people have, I think, is one that, yes, they would be a good thing because we use them on Moto. Why not use them in real life? I think that's the standard knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
Beyond thinking about like the money standpoint of it. What do you guys think?
I think if they want Moto to kind of be the future, then everything we do should be closer to Moto. You know what I mean? Like,
we shouldn't be playing a drastically different game on Moto than we are in paper.
I've always argued like college sports having different rules than like the pro sports. It's just weird to me. Like, why would you want to prepare yourself for something that's not what you're doing? And I think it's a good to like probably like train the people playing to play like that if that's how they want it to progress.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's a huge learning curve for the people that have already been playing it for a long time, playing Magic, paper Magic for a long time, because there's a lot of subtle like hand gestures or just shortcut words that pass priority, not just pass the turn.
Yes.
So that is a lot more intentional or deliberate on Moto. Like you have to actually click a button or click a key.
Yes.
in order to do that, where like when priorities pass isn't always clear when you're playing Paper Magic.
Yes. And I actually think that's both a pro and a con for adding it in Paper Magic. I think it would be nice to have a more clarified position on how passing priority works and how responding works, and having a chess clock would force people to honestly pay more attention to their match, because you'll run into that, especially in Legacy, where you have to clarify with your opponent whether or not every single spell resolves. You run into these situations, and I know I did over the weekend, where you'll be like brainstorm, and then your opponent will be like watching the match next to them, or vaguely paying attention but won't communicate. So you're just standing there awkwardly, and you're like, did this resolve? And things like that, where a shot clock or a chess clock would force people to be more specific about their actions. But I think the other downside is then having to press the chess clock every single time you change priority. In chess, it makes sense because each move is a change of priority, whereas in Magic, a whole turn can have maybe like upwards of 20 passes in priority. Because you like, think about it, most of the time you can shortcut upkeep, especially in like things like Standard, where upkeep triggers and upkeep spell casting isn't as big. You just go untap, draw. Whereas with a chess clock, it would be untap, okay, pass priority, click, and then they'd have to pass priority, click, and then you're like draw step, pass priority, click, and then it would add a lot of clicking to Magic.
Honestly, I think that is one of the more aggravating things when you're playing Magic. Like when you have something to do on their upkeep, and they just, you like, end my turn, and they just go straight to drawing their card.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of players out there that don't really understand priority completely.
Okay, yep.
You know, because like you have that whole, I cast a spell, and then you have a chance to respond to that, and that's as deep as they go on that. But it's so much deeper than just you get a chance to respond to that. Because there's holding priority, the fact that every time a spell gets put on the cast or on the stack or resolves, priority has to pass back and forth. There's so much there. I think a clock will kind of, I don't know, it would definitely speed up that learning process. You'd have to learn
will
real
it though?
fast. I think it would. I think a lot of people wouldn't embrace it though.
I think the big thing is,
so like in cases like where you have a spell on the stack, I would agree with you, but in your like end step upkeep, that you're still gonna have that shortcut. People shortcut that where they just go directly to their draw step, because like if they don't have effects during their untap,
that's fair.
like if they don't have anything tapped and they don't have any effects in their untap step, or their upkeep, they're just gonna draw a card and start their turn. Like,
and
so
if
it's not
anything,
100%.
the clock will add more like judge calls to judge. He didn't pass the clock to me for upkeep.
Yeah, and is that what they really want?
But it would solve the problem of people doing things like assuming a brainstorm resolved, because they'd go brainstorm, and if they didn't click the clock back, then it's their problem for having resolved a brainstorm before you had a chance to do anything.
Or moving directly into
attacks. Yeah, the awkward attacks, and then you're like...
But and the other thing you have to think about is, so like, what was it, 3 Pro Tours ago, where they did the whole like Toolcraft Exemplar trigger thing, where it's like in the beginning of combat step, like on Moto, that would have worked because the beginning of combat step exists, but on Paper Magic it does not exist, and it does
now. They fixed it.
It didn't, so like it wouldn't have solved that problem. Yeah. So it was like, so you're gonna have little nuances like that are gonna continually pop up, and it's like, is the chess clock gonna make that more confusing down the road?
I think the worst part about it all is the judge calls where they're like, someone's like wasting clock.
So in chess, when you call I forget the official term in chess, but the equivalent of a judge, there's actually a pause button on the clock to pause everyone's time so that you can officiate things and figure out ruling and stuff like that. That would also be how I'd assume that sideboarding would work, is that you would pause the clock for sideboarding.
That's a good point. Shortcuts would definitely get hit the whole, like,
Okay.
I'm gonna fetch. You can't really, like, go, I'm gonna fetch, cast, like, a Traverse the Ulvenwald kind of thing, like I was doing in Modern. And you're like, while I'm fetching for the land that would allow me to cast the Traverse, I'm just gonna get the land that I'm traversing for also.
Yeah, and actually, Hoffman does, his question is what I was going to try and segue into, is cost of using clocks. So, I think the knee-jerk assumption would be that TOs would be the ones to cover clocks. I know in chess tournaments, you as the player are required to show up with chess pieces, chess board, and a chess clock. And I think it's whoever ends up being white in the game, being the white pieces, is the one that sets up their board and clock. Obviously, in chess, that's a little less of a thing to ask people to buy a chess clock because that's the only thing they're buying for. Whereas in Magic, you're paying a bunch of money for your Magic deck on top of then having to buy a chess clock.
Yeah.
So I think then you would probably end up seeing TOs have to use them. And I think our friend Jacob Kreiner, who's a judge and who has worked on GPs and things like that, points out that it would just be a huge pain for them to have vast numbers of chess clocks to set up and inventory and things like that.
And you would have to bring more, because you'd have to figure someone gonna get lost, someone gonna get broken.
That's yet another thing to, like, say that that's another thing that would force caps at events. Because, like, we can't have more matches than we have chess clocks.
Yeah.
Is that necessarily a good thing, though? Like making that hard,
No, I think that's bad.
Yeah, look at what happened at Grand Prix Pittsburgh, was it? Yeah, Pittsburgh. Where they had that whole fiasco with capping events and not knowing the correct numbers. Like, you might end up with them, like, being like, we have an extra 100 clocks, why don't we just add this 100 people that we don't have room for, but we have clocks for?
And what happens when they have broken clocks in between rounds?
Yeah.
Like, because that would be awkward. You sit down, you're going to have to waste time testing your, like, it's like, make sure the clock
Or if the clock, like, I don't know how chess clocks work, but, like, if the clocks break
in the middle, how do you figure out whose time is whose and stuff like that? Yeah, so I think the consensus is we don't think it's feasible, and we were gonna film it. We were gonna film a video of us testing it out beforehand, but we, due to a bunch of stuff that came up, haven't done that yet. So we're actually gonna film it after the podcast and upload it to YouTube for you guys to watch, of us just trying out a match of Magic with a clock and see. I think it'll just show how awkward and how glitchy it makes a game of Magic, just having to press the clock every single priority change. And I'm sure we're gonna miss priority changes and stuff like that.
And there's definitely, I think it'll, like, make a game longer than the 50 minutes that you're already allotted to play, just because of all the confusion it would cause, and it would slow the game down in and of itself.
Yeah. So I think our conclusion is that it's not feasible, and we probably won't be seeing it soon, but it's just something to think about, just having the huge divide between MTGO games and real-life games. Alright, so moving on, I think we're going to look at the Pro Tour top 8. I think Chris is pulling that up right now. Alright, is it up then?
Yep, it's up.
Alright, so first, can I just say how weird it is? I get the storyline, but at least on MTG Top 8, they called the winning deck by Palavita Damaderosa Comeback Red, and then all the other decks are what, Ramunap Red? Is that how you say that name?
Yeah.
Ramunap.
Ramunap.
And it's the same deck, but they just put backstory between it. So that's my little complaining fest of the day. But I think the defining storyline of this Pro Tour is Mono Red. It was everywhere. Wasn't it something like 40% of the metagame day 2 or something absurd like that?
They were saying that.
And they say Vintage is bad when Gush is 25% of the metagame, is all I have to say about that. What do you guys think about that?
I have no comment on Gush.
No, not Gush, but the red being so rampant in Pro
I'm kind
Tour.
of torn because it's like mono red hasn't had a place in standard for what is it, 2 standards now?
Something like that.
So it's kind of like it. I feel like like mono red or some type of aggressive deck like mono red keeps the format in check, and I think the cards that were printed like push that deck out, like the Delirium decks and the Aetherworks Marvel decks. They would just push these decks out and just made them unplayable.
Yes.
Where I think now that mono red's back, like it was the best deck, obviously. They had a huge showing, but I don't know if it'll be the best deck forever. Like that, I'm hoping that it's gonna like level standard off where it's a diverse format.
To kind of add on to what Chris was saying, I feel like every time there's a new set that usually pushes mono red, like I feel like aggressive red decks always win in new sets. The problem with the last couple sets was that like the Zendikar cards have just been so prevalent, especially Gideon, that it was just hard for the other sets to break through. I definitely feel like there's a progression of standard decks.
Yes.
Like early in the set, it's definitely always like mono red. By the end of it, we see more mid-rangey combo. Like if there's gonna be like a combo, someone usually figures it out.
Yes.
They kind of figured it out early on, but the place where it's like halfway through, and they usually end on like big green stuff.
Yeah, by the end it's just metagame decks upon metagame decks upon metagame decks. Yeah. Like, what's your guys' opinion on that? Like, I definitely see this as being one of the Pro Tours where there's a winningest deck at the Pro Tour. Look at like Mardu Vehicles from 2 or 3 Pro Tours ago, and then that deck just goes on to be a part of the metagame, but it's not the metagame anymore because people figure out how to beat it. What are your opinions on, should they, because I've heard some people talking about this, should they do Pro Tours more like they're doing the standard championship where they're moving it to the end of the standard instead of the beginning? That way you have a more fleshed out metagame and it's even more about gameplay skill of a pro as opposed to finding the best deck in a weak skill of a pro team.
So I think Chris was saying something earlier about this one. It's just that all the pros get together so much early before these Pro Tours, and they meet and they like fix the meta before there's anything to be seen there. I don't think when you do it is the issue because these guys are constantly working on it.
Okay.
I think generally if they do it earlier in the season, I think it allows for more net decking.
Okay.
And if they do it later in the season, then you'll have a more diverse, like, not pro level, just because you don't really have something to base yourself on.
Right.
That's what you're getting at, right?
Yeah.
Should they push the like pro back and stuff? Yeah, because like the pros, I think, know what they're gonna do. But I don't. The people who weren't, spending a month in a cabin figuring out.
See, but I don't even know if that's true because wouldn't that then mean that a GP in a month or two would look exactly the same as the Pro Tour if what you're saying is the pros will just play the same deck no matter what because that's what they come up with? I don't know, I'm not necessarily saying that they should do it because obviously the Pro Tour is about selling new cards, but I think it would be interesting to think about is having a Pro Tour at the end of the standard season just to see it be a little bit more about gameplay and a little less about finding the best deck as quick as possible.
What do you think, Chris?
Alright,
anyway.
So let's go to the chat because we have a question from Chris Conroy for the win. So here's a hot take from Reddit. Should PVDR... Is the initials PVDR or is it PVDDR? I think it's PV. It doesn't matter.
It's 2Ds.
Have conceded the game due to the misplay because he was dead, along the same vein where someone asks for concession when the game ends on turn, even though one player was ahead and about to win. I'm assuming that's like turn 5 of turns.
Yeah, probably.
So, first of all, I I haven't watched the top 8 yet because I've been busy the last couple of days. Did you watch it all? Do you know what he's talking about?
I don't think so. I don't remember what. No.
All right.
I don't remember something like that happening.
All right. So going in blind and answering the question without having seen the, because I'm assuming you didn't watch it, because of all the people here, Matt's the least likely to watch the Pro Tour top 8.
Going in blind's what we do best, though.
Yeah, going in blind. I think that if the rules do not force you to have a game loss, I do not think that you should have to concede in any one situation, even if it's a very crappy situation. And me personally, my ethics in Magic, I feel like if the rules do not cover a situation, that it is fine to exploit that situation, personally. I don't know about you guys.
I think Andre and I are kind of on the opposite side.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of do what you can to win, but we definitely, I feel like there's like that line where you're just kind of like scumming, versus like if you go off with escape shift knowing you can't kill your opponent concedes the escape shift, that's on them. But if you do something intentionally to mislead them.
See, but I think there's, because like doing something intentionally to lie or something like that is covered under the rules. Like, I think there's a difference between things that are covered under the rules, doing them and not getting caught and winning, as opposed to doing something that the rules don't cover that could be seen as a gray area and winning because of that. Like, obviously we haven't seen the video, but evidently someone made a misplay and it mattered for PVDDR. So that's my opinion. What about you, Chris?
So, I like, having not seen it, like, depending on who made the misplay. So if if my opponent is dead on board, or if I'm dead on board and my opponent misplays, and then I have the opportunity to kill him, that's not. I don't even think there's a question there. You go for the win. Yeah. Like, it's just as much of a mental game as it is as it is strategy. Like, if you just lose, if you just forget something or miss a trigger or something that's going to benefit you and it costs you the game, that's on you to have pick that up. That's not something that I need to remember.
Chris Conroy, FTV, do you have the or FTW? Do you have a link?
Yeah, he's saying that it's under a minute. Yeah, if you can throw us the link, then Chris will pull it up and we can watch it live.
Yo, Chris is gonna get so mad if we keep this up.
I want to win though, so I'm gonna keep calling him Chris.
Oh god, Chris, I'm sorry.
Why are you smiling, Chris? I did just click where? This is Chris, actually, not Andre. Alright, we're waiting on this link. Maybe we can just Google it.
Right, listeners, so who is Chris most likely to kill between me, Tiny, and I'll throw in Hoffman.
There it is.
Alright. Make sure that audio is coming from your computer when we pull it up. So first of all, we're going to break any copyright stuff showing... it's fine. Cool. Well, at least he doesn't lose to Soren's Vengeance. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. That's all I have to say about that. Alright.
Oh, we lost chat.
Oh, where there went chat. Alright, goodbye forever, chat. It was nice seeing you.
Is this on the stream?
No, it's not on the stream. You can't see it.
Well, we should probably pull it up on the stream.
Come on, Chris.
We'll have to go back through the video and see how many times we each said Chris.
We said Chris a lot. Chris, we love and respect you. It's funny, we didn't see Andre today when that guy showed up.
Alright. Alright. So to fill dead air while Chris is pulling this up.
Chris thought we were going to pie him in the face today. I love how it started off really subtle. Oh, God.
Why isn't
Alright, dead air. Ask me a question, Matt. Any question.
Can we switch spots before Chris hits one of us?
Fine.
Oh, God. Alright, so if you lost in Modern in a big event to Lost in the Woods, would that upset you more or less than if you lost to if you lost to Chris?
That's a question.
It's not letting me do it.
Okay,
So
well...
you're gonna believe that somebody...
You know what? We'll post this as a Facebook page thing.
He is in his attack step right now.
What the hell just happened?
Follows effectively at 3. If he finds an incendiary flow, that will
It's
be the
$1
game.
in the swear jar, Chris.
Did he?
I didn't swear!
Is it a flow?
I don't know. We're keeping this PG. I think that word goes in the jar.
Incendiary flow out the top. And look at this. No, you can't.
Alright, Matt. Assuming that this sound isn't drowning us out.
There we go.
Alright, so I guess we are watching the video live.
Give me a second.
Oh my God! To attack with Hazaret, and if he's already
Alright, Matt. Greatest magic moment of your life. Go.
Alright, so the one that I did personally was when we had the team event in Baltimore, and Hoffman said, "Don't worry, you can do bad. Me and Tiny will carry you." And then he went
Sorry.
1-4 and I went 4-1.
Not that you're salty about that or anything.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. 1-4 Hoffman. I'm not upset.
Yeah.
My most favorite that I didn't do but witnessed was when I had proxied up Lantern Control, and Austin borrowed it and was playing against Russell.
Yeah.
And Russell was just obviously getting mad that he couldn't beat the deck, and so he brings in Leyline of Sanctities from other decks and
Right.
shuffles them in, and
Yeah.
he's like, "I have pre-game effects," and he jams like 2 of them on the board. And Austin goes, "Gold Caller's Bell." Tap it. We both mill one, and he mills his
Ad nauseum.
ad nauseum,
Yeah.
and he surgical extractions it. How about yourself?
Alright, greatest magic moment that I have. So, I think greatest one that I saw, not that I like played in or anything, is definitely Chapin commentating on Panda playing Modern in that one event, where he just goes off on that rant about Panda sending
Bolts to the
bolts
face.
upstairs. That was definitely one of my favorites. Oh man, we're slowly getting there. Favorite moment that I was involved in. Huh. That one's more, I don't know. I've had a lot of fun playing Magic. I don't know if I could distill it down to one event.
I still like when your vintage opponent had a Painter Grindstone, but he goes a Painter named Blue, then he plays Grindstone, and you
Yeah,
got him.
so I'm like force pitching Tropical
That was
Island.
the only 2 cards in your hand.
Or, what's some other fun ones? Oh, my favorite from the Modern event that I came in second a couple weeks ago was playing in the semifinals. I played against Scott Davies playing, what do they call that? Green-red?
Panza.
Playing Panza. And turn 2, I ask him if I can read his Utopia Sprawl, and I'm reading it to double check if I can make it fall off with Spreading Seas. And as I turn to the judge to say, "Hey, Kreiner," he's like, "Yes, Spreading Seas makes it fall off." And I'm like, "Okay, destroy you."
Oh, man.
But yeah, it's, I don't know.
I can't capture the audio, but we can watch it here.
Okay, sure. You can watch our reactions to this as we don't capture the audio.
You have to make a face. Chris, make a face.
Alright, let's go.
At 3. If he finds an incendiary flow, that will be the game. He could just kill him right here, right? Incendiary flow? Is it a flow? See what he's got.
Is it a flow?
It is an incendiary flow.
It's a flow!
It's an incendiary
Does
flow.
he forget to attack?
And look at this. No, you can't attack. You can't attack. He has only 2 cards in hand. Is he in his combat step? What's going on? He can't attack. Is it? That cost him the game. That cost him the game.
That could cost Yan Wing Chun the game.
So what happened?
Oh my God!
Because you can't attack if you have cards in your
with Hazaret, and if he's already moved into his combat step, it'll be too late for him to deploy one of the two sorceries in his hand, and a huge head shake for him.
What?
Oh.
The judge is going to help explain exactly where we're at, but there's no
Yeah,
way
that's not a mistake that I concede to. Because, like, so story time from my Legacy event over the weekend that I played in, I played against Miracles round 1. And game 3, I stabilize, and I see that he only has 2 lands in hand. And if my Delver flips, he just dies. But I kind of forgot that Delver hadn't flipped yet. So I just go, like, untap, draw, attack for lethal. And then I realized that it's not lethal because my Delver didn't flip. Luckily, he didn't punish me. But that's definitely... that's definitely a situation where I made a mistake, and just because I missed lethal because of my mistake, I shouldn't expect my opponent to concede because of that. And that's definitely something where, like, was that the final? I'm assuming that was that
was...
I guess it wasn't because that was Hazaret versus Hazaret. But yeah, you're like in the top 8 of a Pro Tour. You definitely should.
Semifinals.
You definitely should be able to control your emotions a little bit more than, and make. I think that's one of the key things is making decisions before you change phases in each step of the turn is just like making sure that everything's good, making sure that you're not screwing something up by moving to attacks or something along those lines. What do you guys think?
I mean, so it's weird because definitely I would have definitely not conceded in a situation like that. I would probably be the one to make that mistake, to be completely honest. But that being said, like definitely there, I would not concede there. But to the point we were talking about earlier about making the Pro Tours at the end, like this would probably not happen if the format was so early. Because you got to think, like, all right, Hazaret's been out for an entire set, but it hasn't been played. So, like, they might not be that familiar with the card or something like that. I mean, you can make the argument.
Yeah, you could make that argument. I don't know how much I'd buy it.
I was going to say, but that's what, like, 14, 15, like,
yeah, because
people
still make mistakes like that in Modern and Legacy with cards that have been out for years and years. It's all about getting too excited, and I think it's going back to, I think I've read people kind of criticizing PV for, I think, didn't he win the Pro Tour and then immediately start de-sideboarding instead of being excited and celebrating? I think that's one of the keys to him being, like, looking forward to our next segment, him making my top 5 greatest Magic players of all time, is that part of it is being very stable in your emotions and being able to separate being excited about winning a game and actually winning the game. Because that's exactly what that was, is he's like, yes, this is the one card in my deck that wins the game. Oh, wait.
Yeah, I mean, he just got distracted by the excitement, or just.
I think he only had so many cards he could cast off of his draw to like go off.
Yes,
because he had what, a 3-mana sorcery in his hand.
Wasn't it 4 mana?
4,
I think. Yeah.
So I think once he saw that he got a card that he could play to empty his hand, he just like lost. Yeah, he lost sight of what he needed to do to win. Because, like, in his mind, he's running certain scenarios. Like, if you get this, you win the game. And he got it. And I think it's an easy one to miss, you know? Like, I've never been in a situation like that, but I could see myself rushing and getting, like...
Yeah.
But I agree. The people who historically win things like this are the ones who stay calm under pressure.
Yep.
Like, for anything. Like, you look at athletes, and they stay calm under pressure. You look at the good Magic players, they stay calm under pressure, and if you can get excited and lose, it's just that much harder for you to be able to get to that final, like, being the best or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, like Hoffman said, it's easy to get caught in your own head and make mistakes.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was the Pro Tour, I guess. Or actually, we had a second question, if we scroll back up, from Maori. The second half of that paragraph was, along the same vein, where someone asks for concession when the game ends on turn, again we're assuming like turn 5 of turns, even though one player was ahead and about to win. So what's your guys' opinion on that? If you're like, hey, this is turn 5, I'm going to crush you immediately if I get to untap, can you concede to me? What's your opinion on that?
I don't think it's wrong to ask for that, but I think you should always play till it's over, until you can't.
No, but they're saying that they are. This is turn 5, game's over. Instead of taking the draw, they're like, hey, well,
so
you can see.
If there was a turn 6,
they'd be dead, yeah.
I don't know, I think there's like a level of like skill involved in like being able to not die once it gets to turns, you know what I mean? Like, if he has that lethal turn 6, but there's no turn 6, you were skillful enough to at least prolong it.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't think it's wrong to ask.
Yeah, I mean, like Hoffman said, I don't think it's wrong to ask. I agree with that. But don't get tilted when they don't concede. Like, we've heard plenty of stories from different players that we play with, and that were terribly upset that
I was going to bring that up. I wasn't going to say the name, but it was you and I that were talking to him, where he was
they
like,
were pissed that they didn't concede.
Hey, he was like, hey, I'm grinding pro points or whatever, can you concede so I can day 2? And the other guy's like, no, because
I want day 2 the JP.
Yeah, he wanted,
because he had never. So the story is
a pro versus
a
first time GP
player. GP player is going to make day 2 in his first GP ever, and the pro is grinding for points. So
and they both draw the win and in, so that they're both not going to go to day 2.
Correct. So the pro asks for a concession, and then the casual player or semi-competitive player declines, and then the discussion was, well, he should have scooped him, or he should have conceded, and it's like that argument could go either way.
Exactly.
Like because I'm sure if the tables were turned, it'd be the other way around. Like, it's just a matter of.
Yeah, look at this. Like I said, the rules of Magic are set up in such a way that if you follow them, sometimes you end up at turn 5 and no one's won. And yes, it's the fault of both players probably for taking that much time, but that's just how matches of Magic end up, and you can't expect someone just to give you a win when you didn't not deserve it, but you didn't earn it.
Agreed.
I do think one of the harder things to do is to go, I can't win this game, and we're in turns, let's prolong it so I don't lose. That's really tough.
Yeah, you play to your outs to get that 1 point for a draw instead of the 0 points for a loss.
Also, I also agree with Chris. If things were different, then things would be different.
Yeah.
But since turn 6 doesn't exist, I don't think it's wrong if someone says, will you concede to me, and you say no.
Yep.
You didn't kill me, I don't think you should have that win. I definitely don't necessarily think that you shouldn't have the win, but I don't deserve a loss for tying the game.
Yep. Anything else from you guys about the Pro Tour?
I did like one of the different decks that made the top 8 was red-black.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's cool that red-black and mono-black zombies, and the other one was
green-black Constrictor.
Yeah, green-black Constrictor is still a good deck. I don't know why Chris sold all those cards that he had from the deck.
Oh, you sold it?
He sold all the expensive cards.
I mean, just the gear home.
Expensive cards. Alright, but yeah, if Chris, do you have anything to say from the Pro Tour?
Nope, I think we've discussed it enough.
Alright, so now I think we have enough time to cover me complaining about certain pros being in the top 5 greatest players of all time list.
Well, first we should, I think all 3 of us have come up with lists of our top 5 all-time best. Chris, would you like to go first? Chris does not want to go first. All right, Ty.
Alright, so The other four aren't really in any sort of order of best players, but
That's me.
The other four aren't in any sort of order. But me personally, I definitely think LSV is easily the best Magic player of all time. I think if you look at there's that website, the Magic ELO rating page or whatever, he is ranked number 1 in ELO rating over everyone else. I think his ability to 1, entertain, 2, explain Magic, and 3, play Magic exceedingly well over like long periods of time just puts him far and way the best player in my mind. What?
No, keep going.
Should I just say as many Magic cards as possible? And yeah, when I was pondering my list, I definitely think with his Pro Tour win, PVDR puts himself in the top 5 best players of all time. I think Finkel's a shoo-in just because he's Johnny Magic. He's kind of the face of pro Magic, the guy that I think everyone learns as a pro player from the beginning. Like, when I asked you if you knew of any pro players, I think he was one of the few that you knew about. Sort of like when we asked on our Facebook page, McCormick listed 4 players, and it was like, and then one of the Asian guys, I definitely think Yuya Watanabe, I think you and I decided on that, is the defining, the defining Asian,
non-European, non-American player.
Yeah. And not Australian, because I can't think of any Australian pros. Oh man, he even added a standard card to his comment. So yeah, you Watanabe. And then I think number 5 is a flex slot. Me personally, random unpopular opinion that hopefully will piss a bunch of people off. I don't think Kai Bood should be in the top 5 players of all time.
I think you and I agree on that also.
Yeah.
And I think, like we were talking about it the other day, like it's just, he hasn't played in a Pro Tour in way too long.
Mm-hmm.
And if you talk to any, the other thing is if you talk to any of the pros or listen to any of the pros when they talk about it, the Pro Tour was a lot easier to win back then when he had his streak than now.
Mm-hmm.
So
like, yes, he did do something insane. He won, I didn't look up the number, but some absurd number of Pro Tours. But if you look at LSV, PV, Yuya, even Finkel shows up to all the Pro Tours. He doesn't show up to GPs and stuff like that as much, but he shows up and does well at the Pro Tours.
He does, and that's the key, is that he shows up and does well. He may not win, but he like regularly top 8s, and
whereas
I don't think it's either.
Kai actually, he retired, and I think even in sports, right, if you retire too early, that kind of does shoot yourself in the foot.
So in sports, like if you have like the championships under your belt, and you especially a bunch in a row, you're definitely a shoo-in for being.
That's for Hall of Fame though, not for being the best player of all time.
Oscar Robertson, he's considered one of the greatest of all time. He won 11 championships in a time of basketball where people think it was the easiest to win. But he put up numbers and won championships more than anybody, like better than anybody else, and so there will always be people who will argue for him.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's personal opinion, and I like to be edgy, and 2 just think that still being good at the game is significant, at least to me. So
and he may be good at that's the thing, is like he just doesn't play Magic often.
See, but the
only thing I've seen of Kai Bood recently is
the Vintage
Super League, and he didn't even do that well.
Yeah, he didn't really play all that well in the Vintage Super League. He didn't seem that inspired in his gameplay.
Was there anything worth winning that over though?
It doesn't matter, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't matter.
So, but everyone else put effort into it.
Yeah, like being competitive is being competitive. Like,
so, and also, all right. So let's compare.
That.
Let's compare LSV and Kai. So LSV. If anyone watches his stream, so not to put ego into Hoffman's head, LSV is easily one of the most Hoffman people that I like. People that I've heard about. They also win a full set of Power Online, so that's a significant prize. But he doesn't put effort into things. a lot of the time. Like, he'll put effort into the Pro Tour, but like the Vintage Super League, he kind of just showed up and played well. Whereas Kai, I don't know if he put effort into it or not, but definitely did not play on the same level as LSV did in the Vintage Super League. And LSV barely put any effort into those games / deck decisions, I don't think. Besides maybe the finals. That's my personal opinion. I think number 5 for me is definitely a flex slot. I think for now I filled it with Gabriel Nassif, just because he's another one that consistently does well at Pro Tours, consistently innovates, is really good at Limited, and he might not be the biggest name pro, but
We felt like we should put somebody in Europe.
yeah.
So where are you putting Richard Nguyen? Richard Reichard Nguyen. Where are you putting him in your top 5 though?
It'll be on the VOD. You can just copy it there.
Oh god. Quote by Tiny. Hoffman's pretty much just LSV. Yeah, where do we put Richard Nguyen? Well, he is positive at Pro Tour records, so there's that.
So I'd easily put him at 3.
Alright, so Andre, since we know that Matt's list is not a list, what do you... Damn it.
Yes.
Alright, Chris.
But
Too late.
Every Andre's negative 3 Chris's though, by the way.
We never made that roll. Take -1.
I called him Matt earlier too, so
Alright, Chris. What's your list then?
So my list is, and not like ranked or anything. It's LSV, PV.
PG Herman.
Did you
Where's
pick Finkel?
Mistake?
So Finkel, yeah.
Where's
So
Mistake?
it was yeah. LSV, PV, Finkel, Yuya Watanabe, and the 5th was a flex spot. I was like stuck between like Ben Stark and Gabriel Nassif is what we were talking about before, and I'm not sure which one.
Mm-hmm.
Which one? Would
So
be.
whichever one does the best in the next Pro Tour you'll put in?
Pretty much. And like what we were talking about, Patrick Chapin.
Yeah, I could also see Owen Turnwald making... Ooh, yeah, and Reed Duke,
But like he missed a couple good years of Magic that he could have
Who did?
potentially. Patrick Chapin.
yes.
So he could have been up there. It's just he missed a couple years, so it was hard for us to judge.
Ask a lot of people like Hoffman. I'm definitely a big Patrick Chapin fanboy, but I think recently he's kind of gone off the deep end on trying to find sweet decks and not necessarily trying to play Magic well.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's kind of the curse of being a innovator and not being like a... He's a really good player, but he's more known for innovating. So sometimes you'll look like you're crazy.
Wasn't Trent on the Pro Tour?
Yes, Trent did go to a Pro Tour.
Yeah, where's he on your list?
Alright, so now that we've got the real lists out of the way. Alright, Matt, what's your list?
So we got Reichard Nguyen. We have Alex Pistecki. We have Trent Stambaugh. I didn't realize that he forgot about him. Then we have Chris Conroy. And then you can never not vote for yourself.
I don't even think Chris Conroy was in the DCI.
I love that I'm the one person on the podcast that didn't make the...
Nope. You would have been
Yes,
on...
also, I was going to point out there's Adam Carrasco also went to the Pro Tour. And you know what he played at the Pro Tour? Mono black 5 color.
Ooh. I do like a good mono 5 color.
On that note, I guess we never finished our Dual Commander battle. We need to figure that out. Coming soon, Dual Commander video.
Yep.
Next Wednesday, we should play something, obviously. You want to take a break from Magic and see if we can win some Pokemon?
Sure.
Alright, we'll stream Pokemon next week. Maybe we'll actually do better than 1X.
We have like 30 meta decks.
Yeah. If you want to watch us tutor 3 cards every turn, come tune in next Wednesday to watch Matt and I play some Pokemon.
And Sinkhole. It's 2 to 3 cards in Sinkhole every
Yeah.
turn.
Beyond that, don't forget, if you would like to support us, patreon.com/spindownpodcast. You can also find us on Facebook at Spin Down Podcast, Twitter at The Spin Down Podcast, YouTube at Spin Down Podcast, and Twitch, Spin Down Podcast. So follow us all on that. We're at 27 likes on Facebook. If we make it a 36-hour stream, so only 3 more likes.
And we were talking about possibly making that a charity stream, depending on when it falls.
Yeah, so we would probably make that a 6-hour charity stream. So, anything from you guys? Chris, Matt, anything?
Do you know where we would be donating the money to, Chris?
No, we were discussing that.
Okay.
I'm personally leaning towards a children's hospital of some sort, because that's I think the easiest to tell that it's actually going to something.
Mm-hmm.
PETA?
Pass.
Donating to PETA.
Hard pass.
We can make pita bread with the money, but... Alright, on that note, I was Tiny.
I'm Matt, and that's Chris.
Have a good one.